Alright, so I have a simple scene setup right here. I've got the swimming animation, which I got from Mixamo, and as well as the character swimming. So Mixamo is an online platform where you get 3D animations, different animations, mock-up animations, and it's a non-site. So this is the same animation that I used even like for the video that once went viral, or still going viral on my TikTok. It's the witch video. Some of you may have seen it, some of you may not have seen it, but it's just this video of a witch sort of swimming in space. I don't know why he was swimming. It was kind of caught on camera, and it's a crazy video. So if you want to extend your animation, you can add like a motion clip to it, and if you go to animate, there's a last option called add motion clip. It gives you that tag, and if you click on that tag, you can go to open in TL, which is open in timeline, and you can click on your animation in the timeline, and it will open this window right here, and you can see there's a loop button right here, so you can choose how many times you want it to loop. So for mine, I set it to 2, which means it will extend even past the keyframes that is showing in the timeline. And the add motion clip is very powerful. It is also used to merge other animations. Like if you've got different types of motions, like jumping motion or swimming motion, you can merge them together seamlessly to make it look like it was one animation. So then you get the whole animation. You can either duplicate it, either the bone and the whole animation that you downloaded, and you can put it in a connect object, and the connect object, you can now animate it to move in space, meaning you now have this animation baked into the connect object. And if you bake it as Alembic, then it will be a one singular object baked with the moving animation. And then you can either export it as Alembic, or immediately you bake it as Alembic, it will be automatically baked, and the format can automatically work in RealFlow. You can either choose to use the RealFlow SD exporter, like I did for the meshes, for the inside geometry and the outside, which is supposed to be the pool. You can just select them, select the number of frames that you want to use, and select them both, and just click export as SD. Or if you want, you can also bake them as Alembic. It works, but just something that you want to do. So inside of RealFlow, I have my both geometries, the inside and the outside geometry. The inside is what I'm using for the pool. So if you want to import your SD files, you go exactly in the files where they are set, and you just select your SD file and you import it, and it just comes in exactly the way it was inside of Cinema 4D. But when it comes to importing your Alembic files, it's sort of a different case. Let's import our Alembic file now. Just go to the folder where the Alembic files are saved and choose the one that you want. And you can notice that we don't see it in the viewport, which is kind of annoying if you're working the first time. If you are trying Alembics in RealFlow for the first time, they kind of come in very big. So the first time I tried to do this, it was sort of annoying. It used to come in a different place, different space, and it just kept annoying me, and I didn't know how to solve it. So you'd think that you click on it and try to scale it from there, but you can see all the values are grayed out, the position, scale, and rotations. You can't sort of do anything to them. And even if you choose to click on the file curve to kind of bring those values back, it won't still work. You can see if you bring the file curve back, you can move it, but if you lock it and try to scroll back, it will pop back to its original place where it was. So there's a simple solution to this. All you have to do is you have to create a no inside of RealFlow, which is found in the primitives object. So just create it, give it a name that you want, and then just get your file and throw it inside of the no object. Now you can scale the no object to 0.01 in X, Y, and Z, and it will pop in the right space, and it will have the same size as it was inside of Cinema 4D. So every file that you bring inside of ViewFlow from Cinema 4D, you have to scale it to 0.01, and it will have the exact same scale that it had inside of Cinema 4D, and it will be in the exact same place, and it will be less annoying. So now you can give it a different color, because the yellow always like annoys me. I just don't like it. I mean, it sort of annoys me. You can leave it if you love yellow, if it's whatever that you want. So now you have to change the cell size and the surface offset settings by clicking the ISO surface in the display tab. It shows you this purple sort of inside mesh. It represents the geometry's collision surface. So it's how the collision will happen with the fluids. So if this has to match exactly, it has to match with your geometry exactly. So you do that by reducing the cell size to a smaller value, and if you switch off the geometry, you can see right now there isn't much showing, and this shows you how it would interact with the water. It wouldn't really interact with it. So you have to change the surface offset settings, and it gives you this geometry representation, which shows you that it will be easier to interact, or to to interact with your fluids. So I'm going to do the same for the inside geometry, since if I don't do this, the water interaction won't be as accurate as it's supposed to be. I'm then going to set my swimming character to a different color. I'm also going to set the inside geometry to a different color, as well as the outside geometry, just so they can be previewed, or a bit better looking than just a solid white color. Next, I'm going to make a cube object, and this cube is just I'm going to scale it to almost fill the inside geometry. This is what I'm going to use for the water emission. You don't have to do it this way, but since the water is going to only emit once and sort of be filled inside of the pool, then you can either do it this way. I'm also going to create a gravity object, a K volume, and just scale the K volume object to fit where exactly I want the water to only end. I don't want it to go past certain points, so I'm just going to scale the K volume to only be where I want the water to be in at the limit. So if the water tries to go past the K volume, it will be killed and won't go past that. In the relationship editor, I'm going to start linking everything to the domain, starting by the K volume, the gravity, the outside box, the swimming character, the inside geometry, and the outside geometry. I'll then create an emitter, and I want to find that cube that we created that is supposed to be the emission of the water. We're going to choose that as the source for the emitter. I'm going to connect the emitter to the domain, and if we hit simulate, you can see some particles showing in the viewport, and they're like really tiny particles, and you can just see them showing up and falling. Yeah, right now there aren't many particles. That is because we don't have much resolution to work with in the domain settings, so you can just see that the few particles swimming in floating inside of the pool mesh geometry. So what we need to do is we need to play with the cell size of the inside mesh, just so we can have better collisions. But also you should keep in mind that the higher the resolution that you have for the water mesh, the more collisions are going to be accurate and better, because you're going to have many particles interacting with each other and sort of floating on top of one another. But if it's like really low resolution, it won't work really well. You can also go to the scale options right here, and if your collisions aren't working really well, you can try upscaling increasing the geometry scale to something like 1.5, which will make like the overall scene scale a little bit better and bigger, so the interactions and the geometry interactions with water will be a bit better than the way it would be if you didn't put that scale on a slightly higher value. But it does increase the simulation time a little bit, since everything is scaled a little bit up, and it doesn't scale up the size of the geometry, and it won't mess it up once you like re-export everything back into Cinema 4D, it will be the exact same scale that it was at. So it only helps to like make everything better collision. So resimming this again, you can see it's almost the same thing. So what we need to do is we need to increase the resolution in the domain and then try to resim everything. I also noticed that when I increased the geometry, when I increased the scene scale, the K volume remained at the scale that we set it in the beginning. So it was sort of cutting the fluids. So let's just like scale it up as well and then try to resim everything again. So one thing that I would like you to keep in mind is when you start like simulating for the first time, you have to give it like a few frames to let the water like settle down, because when you start the actual simulation of the swimming, you don't want the water to be like settling down while you're doing that. You want it to like be fully settled, be at the state of like fully settled. So you have to like give it like a few frames, like maybe up to 100 or 200. It may take a few frames depending on what you're doing. And once you have it at a better state where you want it to like, where it's fully settled, then you can use an initial state and just like check that button and make initial state. You like click and hold on the reset button and choose reset to initial state. So every time you reset it, it will reset to that fully settled state where it won't have to start again like to the very first beginning where it has to like settle. It will be starting at that initial state. And then one thing that you can notice is the swimming animation is sort of below where the water is showing, and that is because different types of swimming animations that I made inside of Cinema 4D. They were at different positions. One was slightly a bit lower, and you can see it's slightly above the one that is in paper, and that is because when I was doing the first tests, the quality wasn't very much high. So when the water settles, it wasn't settling the way it's supposed to. So for the final quality that I made, it settled slightly a little bit lower, and also because of how I set up the K volume, it kind of had to eat a little bit into the water particles. So in case you see that it looks a little bit different from the preview that you saw, that is because I was doing different tests and it may appear different. So now let's look at the settings that I made for the swimming object. So in the Abrido interaction, the first thing that you want to change is the interaction factor. This is a value that kind of makes the interaction a little bit strong. So if you set it to something like 3, it would definitely be strong. And in the Abrido settings, there wasn't much to change. The mini sub-steps and the max sub-steps, I didn't change much, but usually you want those values to be up. Also as the particle steps and the super sampling versus the first area, you may want to play with those values depending on how accurate you want the collisions to be. Sometimes setting is to super sampling makes the collisions a little bit accurate, but also takes so much time to simulate. So another feature that helps with accurate interaction is in the display volume, which is the slice plane. If you just tick that, you can see it displays this sort of a predator kind of color thing, and this represents the areas that will interact with the water. So you may want to play with the offset. Right now you can see that the feet is somewhere below inside the water and the color is somewhat a little bit above the feet. But if we start playing with the offset, you can see now that the color is touching exactly where the feet is, which shows you that the interactions with the water is going to be a little bit better than it was before. So just be really sensitive to check that value every time, to check that feature every time, and see where the intersections between the body and the water is. So I decided to jump back in the project that I used for my final preview, and I just resimmed everything since I deleted the original files, and you can see how the simulation is looking like, and every setting that I showed you in the previous project is exactly the same as in this project. And now I just want to show you the final resolution that I used, which was 0.12 in the domain, and this is what gave me these particles. And now we're going to create a form, and we're not going to change much in the form settings except the color. Actually, we're going to make it somewhat a little bit of a yellowish color, so that it can just help us see the form a little bit different with the hybrid fluids. And in the settings, we're not going to change much except for the emission rate, which we're going to crank up to 120,000. This value may not be enough depending on what you're doing. If you're having a large scale scene, this will not even be close to enough. So you may need to have maybe 1 million or over 1 million particles, but that can be extremely slow and take up so much of your time. Also, make sure that on your hybrido the green icon is checked so that it changes to orange. That's going to mean that it's going to use the cache from the disk. And then click and hold on the simulate and make sure that it's checked, it's set to use cache, meaning that it won't recalculate every time and it will read the cache from the disk. And now you can hit simulate and see what you're going to have for that. So make sure that every time you want to do like more sim like form and splash, that you've set everything to use cache so that it doesn't overwrite what you've already done. So after simulating, this is how our form looks like. And again, this is not even close to how much particles you need for either your form or your splash. It tends to be a lot, and I didn't touch much on the rest of the settings because I know that this is just a basic tutorial, just trying to show you how to render form, because many people really struggle to like render form inside of Cinema 4D from RealFlow. So make sure that every time that you are simulating form, that the Alembic export Alembic is checked. Otherwise, if you spend so much time like simulating and you find that this isn't checked, then it'll be messy. So that make sure that every time before you simulate, make sure that the export Alembic ABC file is checked, and then you can proceed on to simulating the form. So we're going to set the form to use cache again by clicking the green icon to make it orange, meaning that it will also be set to cache. Then we're going to go and create the hybrido mesh by just clicking the hybrido VDB mesh. So for the hybrido export format, you also have to choose between Alembic file and bin file. It all depends with your preference, but sometimes I use the bin file, sometimes I use the Alembic file. So the bin file, of course, uses the RealFlow plugin, which imports the bin sequence. But the Alembic file, you can import it without like any plugins and stuff. So if you don't have the RealFlow plugin, you can just use Alembic. And you can either choose to click the build mesh right here, or you can either do it from the command line as well. So you can either build mesh sequence from the command line, or you can build mesh sequence from the RealFlow. And to get rid of this highlight, you can just go to show and untick selected selection highlight, and then you can remove the green mesh wireframe that shows, and it's a little bit distracting sometimes. So now we're going to create our mesh, and we're going to change the setting in the command line to mesh from use cache to mesh, and then we're just going to do a mesh sequence for all the frames. Okay, and our mesh is complete, it's finished, and automatically the format that we chose, which is the bin file, is exported as the bin file sequence. And the form, if you zoom in, you can see that there's a problem which is commonly known in RealFlow, where the form kind of seems to be underneath the mesh. If you zoom out, it kind of looks like it's okay, but if you zoom in, you can see that the form isn't sitting on top of the mesh. It's supposed to sit on top, and that is because the mesh is a little bit thicker and the polygons are a little bit in a different space compared to where the hybrido fluid is. So usually this happens a lot when you mesh your particles. The foam doesn't sit on top, as you can see on the Hybrido, where it's sitting on the Hybrido particles. It sits underneath, and this tends to create a flicker look, which makes everything just look bad. So there's a quick fix for this. RealFlow has created a tool where if you select both your foam and your mesh, and you go to the Hybrido list, there's this snap foam particles sequence, and this just snaps the foam to the surface of the mesh. So if you just click it, the foam will just start, the sequence will start calculating through, and there will be a new file that will be created, which will be called foam snapped, and it will be just below the original foam, and you can see just going through and resnapping that foam on top of the mesh surface. And you have to make sure that the timeline is set to the beginning to 0, otherwise the sequence will start calculating from wherever you've placed the frame to. This can take some time if your foam is really heavy and there's so much particles, like millions. It can take like hours and hours, and sometimes if your PC is not that fast, it may even like slow down, or it tends to create even bigger files for that. So this snapped foam will automatically be saved to disk, and you don't have to like re-export everything, and it will give a name snapped foam sequence. So there's another tool that measures Alembic sequences, since Cinema 4D doesn't import Alembic sequences. So if you go to tools, you can see stitch Alembic file. The stitching file sequence, it stitches Alembic file sequences. So if you just open it, you can add any Alembic sequence that you have, and it will just merge those into like one Alembic file. So whatever that you're exporting out of RealFlow, you can just select them. So in our case, we're going to select the foam snapped sequence, and we're going to just merge that by like selecting every frame and then just merging it, and it will create one Alembic file. Alright, once done, here inside of Cinema 4D, I'm going to go to the plugins and go to the RealFlow mesh importer, and just go and locate my bin sequence for the mesh. And I'm just going to go to that folder and just import the bin sequence. And if we just try to scrub through, you can see that the mesh is imported exactly the way it's supposed to. And now we're going to go and import the foam, the stitched Alembic foam file, by going to File and go to Merge. And I'm just going to locate that stitched foam file and just import it. And right now we don't see anything, and that is because everything that you are importing from RealFlow, you have to change the scale to 100 in the X, Y, and the Z. Or if you want, you can just go to the Alembic options and change the scale to 100. But you can see it still doesn't look quite right, and that is because you have to rotate it to 90 degrees, just like that, and it will be in the original position that it's supposed to be. And you can see that is our foam. I'm also going to import so that like for the first test that I did, which I showed you in the preview, I also simulated the bubbles, and I may be able to show you that in a different tutorial. That is like there are similar steps with exactly how you simulate foam. So I'm going to import that as well, and just set it to 100 and rotate it to 90 degrees. And now we have the bubbles as well, and you can see just they are right there. Pretty cool. So now next, what we're going to do is we're going to open the Arnold IPR window, and that is what we're going to use to render the foam and the water. We're going to use Arnold, and just it's my favorite when it comes to rendering. So we're going to create a water material just by going to the Arnold standard material, and we're going to just tweak the settings and just create a quick basic water shader. We're going to right click on the mesh, and we're going to go to Arnold parameters, and we want to click on the tag and check opaque. That is just going to make sure that our fluids are not treated as opaque object, but as a transparent object. Now if we preview that, we can see we have a basic water shader or water material. and we can go and tweak the settings, and we can go in the court and increase the coartness, and it will just increase some reflections and just make it pop a little bit better. And in case you're wondering about the light setup that I used, just some basic lighting that I used a sky with an HDRI, and I used another sky material with just the skylight. So there were two that I used. So just a sky which was changed to physical sky with the sunlight and with just a low intensity, so that it can just act like a few light, and also make some of the speculars pop. And then the second sky that I just used it with an HDRI map, which I downloaded from, I think it was from Polyhaven. So now I know that you can't see the form in the viewport right now, and that is because they're just points, they can't be rendered. So you have to convert them, or you have to make them renderable. So I have to right click on them and go to C4D to Arnold, and then select Arnold mesh particles. And now you can see that blobby white thing, and that is just all the form that is converted to mesh, and they're just big right now. So I have to just scale them to the right size. You have to go click on the tag, and you have to go to the radius multiplier and just put that to a smaller value, something like 0.00, either 3 or 4. Sometimes between 4 or 3 works. And if you don't see it updating, just turn it off and turn it back on again, and you'll see it will update and it will show you your form. And the good part about this is you can apply Cinema 4D, you can apply Arnold materials to it, and you can give it like a transparent water shader or something in between, and it will have all the specular highlights. So now we can apply our material on the form, and let's click on the Arnold mesh particle tag and go to all the way to the bottom and tick opaque, so that it can also be treated as an opaque object, as a transparent object. And so you can see we have form rendered inside of Arnold for C4D from RealFlow. And you can go into the material, you can start playing with specular intensity, and however you want it to more to pop. If you increase the IOR, that is the index of refraction. Yeah, dang it. Yeah, it will pop a bit back more. And if you reduce it, so like at this point, it's just you trying to play with the settings, to give you the look that you desire. And you can see it's already looking really good, and you can imagine how best it would have looked if we had a lot of foam right here. So one of the things that you're going to notice as you keep playing or scrubbing through while you're working is when you scrub through too fast and you're trying to see everything in real time in your IPR window, you may notice that the form will be dragging behind where it was before you scrub through. So to fix that, just turn it on and off, and it will update back to where it is in the viewport. That is because it just takes like some time to calculate if you are scrubbing through like real quick. So just note that when you're doing that, you may need to turn it on and off a few times, and it will be updating to where it's supposed to be. So I want to talk a little bit about the vertex maps that come attached to the meshes, either from the Alembic mesh or from the bin file mesh. And let me just set the mesh to current state object, and if I click on the vertex tags, you can see that it previews the vertex tags, which is attached to the velocity and also the speed of the mesh. And I want to show how you can use those inside of Arnold to create an interesting water look. So we're going to create a few materials. We're going to search for standard and create an Arnold standard material inside. We're going to rename it to white. So we're going to call it white. Then next we're going to search for the vertex map, which is the C4D vertex map. We're going to bring it in here as well, and we're going to change it the name to 1, and it will automatically call it 1 vertex map. We're also going to grab a layer shader, and we're going to bring it in here as well. We're also going to name it to 1 so that it calls it 1 layer shader. We're going to connect these in this order. So we're going to connect the layer shader to the main output. We're going to remove the main material, which is the main water material, and we're going to connect the layer shader to the output. And then we're going to connect the main material. We're going to connect it inside the layer 1 input. Then we're going to grab the white material, which is just the standard material, which is right here, which we have renamed to white. We're going to connect it in the layer 2 input. So this white material is one that is going to be visible in the vertex map. So we put it in the layer 2 input. Then we're going to put the vertex map in the layer 2 mix. Not layer 1, but layer 2 mix. So we've put the main material in the layer 1, then the white in the layer 2. So the vertex map, we're going to put it in the layer 2 mix. So now we have to grab the vertex tag. We're going to start with the vertex tag. We're going to grab any of them, and then we're just going to drag it in the slot, and we can see it just popping in the viewport, and it's just displaying what you are seeing in the vertex map. So we're seeing that white color. And now to reduce the intensity of this white color, or to control how much powerful it is, we need a ramp float node. We're just going to search for that. We're going to bring it in here. And what we're going to do is we're going to connect the vertex map in the input, and the ramp float, we're going to put it in the mix. So now the ramp float is what we're going to use to control the intensity. So by default it can be set to V, or either U or V, but we have to change it to custom so that we can have our own control. So we can see this curve right here. We can control click on them, and we can create our own points. And if you start dragging the points down, you can control how much visibility you want for that. So if you've got unnecessary parts that you don't want to see, you can just click on the curve and just control how visible you want those vertex maps to be visible. And we're going to combine all the 3 vertex maps with the materials. We're going to duplicate the materials and then just combine all the 3 vertex maps together and create this sort of one water kind of fake white water look. So we can play with the white water shader, which is this white water shader that we're seeing right now. So we can just try to play with it, the intensity. We can give it some transmission, and we can give it some specularity. We can just like kind of arrive at the point where we sort of want it to look like it's coming from the inside, like it's this inside water, white water kind of look, and it will be beneath the foam and whatever that you're having. So just having this extra detail kind of looks like, that white water look, which is pretty cool. So let's duplicate the white material, and let's just call it white 2, and let's duplicate the ramp, and let's call it 2 as well. Also, let's duplicate the vertex map, and also let's call it 2. So I want to do this for the rest of the vertex tags that are remaining. So I'm going to go through the same steps that we did before. First, we're going to grab the speed Y. So the first one that the speed X. So the first one that we got was the speed Y. So now we're dragging in the speed X, and we'll do the same for the Z. So let's just arrange the nodes right here, and from here it's the same steps. It even gets like simpler. So the first thing that we do is connect the white two to the third input, which is the layer 3 input, and let's connect the vertex map to the ramp input just like we did before, and then we're going to connect the ramp to the 4 mix, so the mix of the 3 mix, not the 4, so the 3 mix right there. So it shows the second vertex map, so we are mixing between those vertex maps, and we can do the same thing. If it's bright enough, we can bring it down so you can see. We bring it down, we're able to see the first vertex map. So just going ahead, and we're going to repeat the same stuff even for the last vertex map. So now you can see all the 3 vertex maps are displayed, and we have this kind of water look. This doesn't display like accurately unless if you like cached the vorticity inside of RealFlow. It kind of displays things a little bit accurately than just having the default vertex maps, which is the speed X and Y and Z. So if you combine this with the foam and the bubbles, you can see we just have this underneath water look, and yeah, it looks really great. So from here, all you have to do is just start tweaking, just start playing with the color, with the reflection, with the reflections and the intensities of the vertex maps, to tweak them at each frame to your desired look, and you get your rendered form. The vertex map is just a touch that I wanted to add to you, so that in case you needed to also know how to render vertex maps inside of Arnold from RealFlow, this is how you do it. So there you have it, guys. Thanks for watching this tutorial, and I hope you liked it. If you did, please leave a like, and also please leave a comment. And I know it's been a while since I made tutorials, but hopefully you can support me and help me make more tutorials by encouraging me, and also the YouTube algorithm, you know how it works. So see you next time.